Welcome to Horrify, a Halloween and October tales, where monsters roam wilder and demons pass through. There will be 31 stories to tell throughout October. We had begun with the Haunted series, the tale and horror of the Ballerina. Let's begin and enter the shadows of night. Chapter 1, Tragedy. A stage filled with people and lights. The shine of the lights makes the stage look like it's made of gold. A woman with long brown hair dressed in white feathers adorn her tutu in vibrant and various colors. She dances with the lights, with grace and unknown gentleness that captures the audience. Unknown to all, what would come next would lead to her death and downfall. A snap of wires, a fall of the light. A crunching noise echoes through the halls. The light had crushed her skull on impact. Did a wire snap from the light? Or was it caught by someone unknown? No one knows, but her tragedy for 3 years. 3 years, the rumors begin. Whoever enters the hall at the time of her death would see her dance. Those however disturb her dance are met with her wrath. Because of this, the hall has been off limits. Her ghost haunts the hall after all. Would you dare enter? As years flew by like leaves, a new year begins. It's autumn. A new student enters Crystal View Private High School, also known as the School of the Horrify and the Haunted. The new student with hair of white and eyes with heterochromia hues. One, yellow like the sun. The other, orange as the first change of leaves. Dressed in the school's uniform. A black jacket with matching pants. Polished black shoes and a crimson polo shirt. The teacher calls out to the class. All eyes are on him. Even the eyes of the dead. This will not be like any other school, and he is not like any other student. What a ride will we be in? The boy said, calm and cool as the breeze. He said, it's nice to meet you. I'm Davian Scholars. I hope we can all get along. Chapter 2, First Day. Davian walked on the school grounds. It was his first day in another new school. He had to change schools, each time for 3 weeks until his father's company found the perfect town for his work. The whole family had to accompany him. Davian was unsure if he would like this one, just like the others, and it was hard to do with his gift. Davian could see the dead throughout the whole trip here. He had seen 3 or 5 ghosts and spirits on the way here. Crystal View Private is known for its haunted history and the rumors that come from within the school building. Davian heard the 5 rumors about the school. The first one was about the haunted stage in the school's ballroom. As Davian entered his homeroom class, he waited for the teacher to notice him. Once the teacher did, he introduced himself to the class. He could feel the eyes of all the students and the teacher looking at him. He could also feel the eyes of the dead watching him too. He was nervous beyond how he sounded. Emotionless and dull. As the class continued, Davian was bored out of his skull. Not only did he know some of the material, but the scent of candy and sweets was making him hungry. As the day continued with boring classes and normal teachings, Davian would be cautious and look at the spirits in the classroom. It seemed like one was here now. As the bell rings for lunch, Davian went to a small locker and got out a brown paper bag. He walked past the school's ballroom for stage plays and dances. Davian checked the time on his watch. It was 12:12 a.m., the time that the ballerina had died, or so the rumors go. Davian walked into the ballroom. He enters the room as quietly as he can. Chapter 3, The Ballroom. She dances with grace with her ghoulish soul. The dance was 2 hours long as Davian watched. He ate his ham and cheese sandwich. Her half-skulled face looked towards the row of seats where Davian was sitting. He was in the first row seats. She noticed him. How odd, the boy was to her. She flew over to him and asked, harshly, why are you here? She went closer to his face as he ate. She opened her jaw to reveal her sharp teeth. Her jaw was dislocated from her face. The imprint of a light misshaping her face. Her eyes are dark and hollow. She let out horrifying screams and growls. Davian just stared back at her, unimpressed as he finished his food. The bell was about to ring for the next period. He said to her, his voice low and avoiding any emotions, "I can see you. I can hear you, and I'm not scared of you. You're the one that needs to be afraid of me." He looked back at her. His eyes dull and lifeless as his voice. Once the bell rings. He walked out of the room and back into the halls. The ballerina was in shock. He was terrifying. More so than them? Than all of them? She would not believe so. He still had to learn. She will let him win today. She still had some scares up her sleeves. He will learn to fear her and the others that remain here. Her dark eyes wept in anger as inky dark tears fell. This is her dominion, and she will not back down. He will learn tomorrow. Davian went back to class and was bored out of his skull once more, but she was interesting. Most don't learn with the first warning. Hopefully, he won't be bored for long. Chapter 4, A New Day, A New Nightmare. A new day arose. Davian was about to walk into the school, a small nudge of the statue loosed. The statue cracked on the side. It was falling at an alarming rate. Davian was about to be hit. The other students, even some teachers, were in a frozen panic. The ballerina giggled wickedly as the statue fell upon Davian. Then, like a sound of wind blowing with the cool breeze, Davian dodged the statue at the last minute. Davian walked up by the pillar next to the door. He runs up it. Then he flew into a backflip as the statue fell where he once stood. The statue broke and Davian remained unharmed. Everyone praised him, and some of the teachers scolded him for breaking the statue but were relieved that he was okay. The ballerina raged and growled. As class began, Davian wrote down notes and schedules for upcoming texts and midterms. As he was writing, a pen flowed to the middle of the room. Then it turned to its side, pointing the tip of the pen towards Davian. Then the pen flew at him. Davian moved his head lower as the pen went through the window's glass like a bullet. Everyone stared at Davian in shock and awe. They were scared. Dead scared. As the day continued, Davian experienced a lot of near-death-like situations. Until lunchtime, where Davian would sit in the front row and watch the ballerina dance until the next bell rang. As Davian walked inside the ballroom, a prop sword was thrown at him. Davian catches the prop sword with his left hand. He walked down to the first row as the ballerina sat on the edge of the stage, glaring with her hollow eyes. The imprint of a light misshaping her face. Her eyes are dark and hollow. She let out horrifying screams and growls. Davian just stared back at her, unimpressed as he finished his food. The bell was about to ring for the next period. He said to her, his voice low and avoiding any emotions, "I can see you. I can hear you, and I'm not scared of you. You're the one that needs to be afraid of me." He looked back at her. His eyes dull and lifeless as his voice. Once the bell rings. He walked out of the room and back into the halls. The ballerina was in shock. He was terrifying. More so than them? Than all of them? She would not believe so. He still had to learn. She will let him win today. She still had some scares up her sleeves. He will learn to fear her and the others that remain here. Her dark eyes wept in anger as inky dark tears fell. This is her dominion, and she will not back down. He will learn tomorrow. Davian went back to class and was bored out of his skull once more, but she was interesting. Most don't learn with the first warning. Hopefully, he won't be bored for long. Chapter 4, A New Day, A New Nightmare. A new day arose. Davian was about to walk into the school, a small nudge of the statue loosed. The statue cracked on the side. It was falling at an alarming rate. Davian was about to be hit. The other students, even some teachers, were in a frozen panic. The ballerina giggled wickedly as the statue fell upon Davian. Then, like a sound of wind blowing with the cool breeze, Davian dodged the statue at the last minute. Davian walked up by the pillar next to the door. He runs up it. Then he flew into a backflip as the statue fell where he once stood. The statue broke and Davian remained unharmed. Everyone praised him, and some of the teachers scolded him for breaking the statue but were relieved that he was okay. The ballerina raged and growled. As class began, Davian wrote down notes and schedules for upcoming texts and midterms. As he was writing, a pen flowed to the middle of the room. Then it turned to its side, pointing the tip of the pen towards Davian. Then the pen flew at him. Davian moved his head lower as the pen went through the window's glass like a bullet. Everyone stared at Davian in shock and awe. They were scared. Dead scared. As the day continued, Davian experienced a lot of near-death-like situations. Until lunchtime, where Davian would sit in the front row and watch the ballerina dance until the next bell rang. As Davian walked inside the ballroom, a prop sword was thrown at him. Davian catches the prop sword with his left hand. He walked down to the first row as the ballerina sat on the edge of the stage, glaring with her hollow eyes. She growled, "How are you not dead by one of them? How are you dodging everything? You are honestly pissing me off." She huffs and turns her head to show her skull-side face with darkened eyes. Davian laughed lowly. As she turned back to glare at him some more for laughing at her, she saw a strange sight. Davian smiled. His smile was pure and kind as him, but his dull eyes made him look completely eerie to all. She was still determined to scare him, but not as harshly as before. She stared at him until he stopped smiling. He asked, "What? What is it?" She replied, harshly, "You just look creepy when you smile with those dead eyes of yours." She continued with a gentler tone, "But it's not as creepy to me. From now on, I would like to play a game with you. If you win, I will tell you my name. If I win, however, you will help me uncover the events of my death. If it was truly an accident or not. Deal?" Davian replied. He smiled as he said, "Deal." They shook hands in agreement. As Davian finished half of his sandwich, the bell rang for the next period to start. Davian packed up his lunch and waved goodbye to the ballerina as he left the ballroom. As he finished up the rest of his classes, it was nearly time to return home. Davian was not looking forward to going home. He walked back to his small house with an old roof and a creaking door. His father was still at work, while his mother was in her room with another man. Chapter 5, Home Life, or Hell Life. As Davian's mother rests in bed with another man. Her curly dark hair falls to the left side of her face. Her olive green dress, lowered to her shoulders, the skirt short to her knees. Her heels, one off her foot, the other not yet there. The man whispered his mother's name as her yellow eyes shone lovely at him. Davian yelled loud enough to have his mother and the man hear him. He yelled, "Mom. I'm home." His mom yelled back, "Hi honey. How was school today?" His mother walked out of the bedroom. The man followed behind her. Davian could see him better outside of the bedroom, after all his mother was covering him a bit. The man was a bit on the taller side, he had blonde hair and green eyes. He was around 10 feet 1 inch in height. He was on the muscular side, with a fit build. The man said, cheerfully, "Hey buddy. I'm your mom's friend. I'm Adam. It's nice to meet you, buddy." The man smiled, showing his shining white teeth. "Straight and perfect." Davian replied, his tone the same as Adam's, but with one small difference. Davian was talking similarly to the man in a sacrist way. Davian said, "I'm Davian. It's nice to meet you, Mr. Adam." Davian continued as he stared into Adam's eyes. He said, "Please, stop trying to pretend that I don't know what you're doing with my mother. I hate liars." Davian glared at him as his mother just smiled. Davian went into a modern kitchen as his mother, Bella, was pulling Adam by the arm as they walked out the door together. Doing who knows what. Davian went to the fridge and opened it to find a small box of pizza. He opened it. He noticed that the pie was greening with mold. Davian closed the box and threw the pizza away. He looked for anything else, but there was nothing. Not even lunch meat or jam. He closed the fridge and went to the bread drawer, even in there. There was nothing. Davian sighed. His mother was a real piece of work. If she was going to be doing this all day, every day, she could else go shopping. Davian went to his room and grabbed a small notepad. He pulled out his case for class with all his pens and pencils. He picked up a soft blue pencil and went back into the kitchen. He wrote down everything that was needed. The list read: milk, whole brown eggs, wheat and hazel bread, honey, ham, spicy chicken, cheese, muffins, and coffee. Davian grabbed the list and went back into his room. In the very back of his room was a bookshelf. Many books rested upon it. Davian picked up the book titled, The Jester. He opened, and inside the book was $100 to $200 in a hidden area in the book. He took $50 and closed the book. He put it back on the shelf. He walked back out of his room and to the closet in the hallway. He opened the door to get a small set of bags and a cart. He dragged them out and closed the door. He walked outside. He goes down the corner from his house and turns left. At the end of the street was a small market. The market was not that special looking. It was like any other market that Davian went to before. He walked inside and got everything on the list. He looked around the market to make something for dinner. He was not sure what to make. As he checks out, the cashier stares at him as she rings him up. She asked, "Where are your parents, kid?" Davian replied, "My dad is working still, and my mom is out." She smiled and bagged the items lightly with the bags he gave her. As he put the bags into the cart, he lists the change as he heads home. He noticed a new pizza shop had opened by the market. He looked at his change. Maybe he could grab a small pie for dinner. It was just him and his dad who would be home. His mom will have dinner with her new friend. He walked home and opened the door. He took out the groceries before he went for pizza. It wasn't that far of a walk anyway. After the groceries were put away, he closes the bread drawer in the fridge. He walked back out of the house. He walked to the new pizza shop. It was a red brick building with a blue roof. The doors were made from glass. The sign read, "Batty Pizza." Davian enters the shop. The inside of the shop had several seats and booths. The scents of bread, tomato sauce, and various meats and fruits. The floors were red and black marble. The tables are maple oak wood. Davian went to the glass displays of the pizzas that Batty's made. There were 5 pies. The first was called Skull and Bat Pizza. It had wheat bread with grassel cheese and skull mushrooms with bat meat, which was just ham-shaped like bats. The second one was called the Ghost's Pizza. It had walnut bread with goat cheese and ghost bell peppers with ghost-shaped chicken. The third was called Wabiza. It had white bread with cheese and pepperoni in the shape of spiders with black olives for spider legs. The fourth one was called Batty's Special. It was a pizza shaped like a bat with bat-shaped olives and bat-shaped ham and pepperoni. The fifth was called Devil's Spice. It was a horn-shaped chicken and spiced cheese with a face-shaped bread. As a worker walked over and asked, shyly. He asked, "What would you like, kid?" Davian asked, in a monotone voice. He asked, "How much is it for a large pie?" The worker replied, cheerfully, "For a large pie, it's $10. For a medium pie, it's $5, and for a small pie, it's $1. Davian said, as he brought out his money from his pocket. He replied, "I'll have a large Batty's Special to go, please." The worker nodded and went to make the order. After making the order, the worker gives Davian a large box with a bat on it. Davian paid for the pie and went home. It was around 2 p.m. As Davian walked home, a dark blue car rolled into the driveway. Davian smiled as he walked a bit faster. A dark-haired man got out of the car. He wore a dark suit and dark blue tie with a skull brooch pin. His sunset orange eyes light up as he sees Davian. The man said, happily, and seemed quite tired. He said, "Hey Davian. How was school today? Also, where is Mom? Did she go with her friend again? Let's go inside, and talk more, my terror." His dad opened the door of the house for him, as they walked together. Davian always didn't enjoy his home life, but he did enjoy the times he spent with his dad, and he did enjoy school, as well as the libraries and bookstores. When his mom was around and not hanging out with her friends, it was no longer a home life that he enjoyed. It turned into a hell life. Davian wished he had a normal mother, sometimes, but that woman was his mother, somehow. Chapter 6, The Game. The next day, Davian walked inside the school. The ballerina was waiting for him by the lockers. The ballerina said, quietly, "You listen. I will talk about the game as I walk with you to class." Davian blinked twice, as if saying, "Okay." As they walked, the ballerina walked gently beside him. The ballerina said, carefully, "The game is chess. I will find the board. Then meet me in the ballroom, like always at lunchtime. Then we can begin our game." She continued, "Someone will join us to determine the winner fairly." Davian whispered, "Okay." The ballerina went back to the ballroom as Davian went to class. As class began, Davian stared out the window until the teacher arrived. The teacher had arrived before class had begun. Davian wrote down everything for an upcoming test next Friday as the class seemed longer today. The bell finally rang for lunch. Davian picked up his brown bag and walked to the ballroom. As he entered, the sound of a camera flashing was heard behind him 6 steps away. Davian was inside the ballroom and went to the first row. The ballerina was waiting on the stage. Davian noticed that there was a young man who stood by the stage. The man had dark black hair with his bangs on the right side of his face. His eyes were as dull as Davian's, but it was an onyx color with a bit of red. He was quite pale and about 7 feet 1 inch in height. He had a slim build. He wore a white polo shirt with navy blue pants and dark shoes with a polished shine. A dark red hood cape ties and around his shoulders. The man stared back at Davian, who had been staring for about 15 minutes now. The man said, with heavy caution, "So, you're Davian Scholars? You're quite famous around the spirit world here. I'm Knight Ravenwood. I'm here for the game. I will be the one to judge who wins or not. It's nice to finally meet you." Knight gently grabbed Davian's hand and placed a kiss on his knuckles lightly. Davian muttered, "Likewise." Davian stared at the sidewall. Knight released Davian's hand. Then the game started. Davian were the light pieces, while the ballerina were the dark pieces. As each moved their pieces. About 30 minutes into the game, the battle was nearly done. Davian moved his king and said, with a smirk, "Checkmate." The ballerina was in shock until she turned to Knight, in hoping that she was the one who won. Knight nodded his head and stated, "He won." The ballerina said, sass-like, "Fine. I guess I will tell you, my name. I'm Bella Ravens." Davian replied, with a small smile, "It's nice to meet you, Bella Ravens." Bella smirked. As Davian eats his lunch, Bella and Knight were talking by the stage curtain out of Davian's earshot. Bella pulled Knight's arm as she whispered something into his ear. Knight just smirked for a moment, then bit his index nail to a shortened length. After all, his nails were long enough to be claws. As Davian finished his food, the bell rang. Davian was about to say goodbye, when Bella pulled Knight in front of her at the edge of the stage. Then Knight was looking down at Davian, who was standing in front of it. Bella pushed Knight and giggled. Knight falls as Davian catches him. Davian helped Knight to his feet, as Knight glared at Bella. Davian waved goodbye as he left the ballroom with 2 spirits chasing each other like little kids. As Davian went back to class, the teacher went over several things and materials that would be in the test for Friday. As the last bell rang, Davian brings home a lot of study materials. Oh, the joy of studying. As Davian walked home, his mother was out again, and his father was still working. Davian went to the door as he walked inside. He went to his room and studied. For tomorrow was a new day. Chapter 7, Picture Troubles. Davian was sleeping on his desk, still at home. His alarm rang with a loud siren tone. Davian moved slightly. He yawned as he raised his head. His hair was all messy and all over the place. He raises his arms as he stretches. Davian quickly changed his clothes into his school uniform and brushed his hair. He turned off the alarm. Davian walked into the kitchen and made a honey and peanut butter sandwich. He put the sandwich into a brown bag and Davian grabbed his bag as he had already placed his homework and school materials back before he studied last night. Davian walked out of the door and locked it with his house key. Then he walked towards the bus stop. While he was waiting, a girl walked over to the bus stop as well. She had bright blonde hair with violet eyes. She was wearing the same school uniform as he was, but it was the female student's version. As they waited for the bus, Davian noticed that she had a camera around her neck. As the bus arrived, the girl went on first, then Davian did. During the whole bus ride, the other kids were picked up one by one. Once they arrived at the school, everyone went off in sets of 4 or 5. Davian entered the school and went to his locker first. He noticed the girl's locker was 3 rows down from his. Davian went to his class. He noticed the ghost girl who smelled like candy and sweets was moving from one desk to another out of boredom. Then the sound of a camera flashing was heard again. Davian turned to the door to find that the girl from the bus was taking his picture. Davian walked up to her quickly and asked, harshly, "What do you think you're doing?" The girl replied, meekly, "Can't you see her? She is at the desk. My camera always can capture their images. I must take their picture so that the picture in the gallery would leave me alone." Davian sighed, "I will help you, but for right now, it would be best if you didn't take someone's picture like this. It's wrong." The girl replied, shyly, "Thank you." She went out of the door and went to her class. Davian signed again. Today was going to be long. Then the first bell rang, and class started. Davian was writing in his notebook as the teacher talked about the test coming up, but unknown to Davian and the rest of the class, that a girl was staring into the classroom. She was staring at Davian. A smile rose, wide and wicked. The third bell rang. Davian was reading a history book for a midterm that was coming next month, and the girl from the bus seat next to him was his desk mate. Another girl watched in horror. She had long black hair with bright blue eyes. She glared at another girl with Davian. The girl with black hair wore a bat skull hair clip on her left side. Once the teacher said that the students had free time. The girl with the bat skull hair clip walked over to Davian and the other girl. She politely said, "Hey Davian. I'm Amy Darklights. I was wondering if you would like to study with me for the midterm coming up this month?" The girl next to him replied, meekly, "Can I join too, Amy? I need help studying too. I'm Lily Hallows." Amy pouted and muttered, "I wasn't even talking to you. Mind your own business. Ask Andrew or something." Lily was about to reply, but then Davian spoke to Lily in a calm tone. He said to Lily, "Why don't you ask Andrew? He's great in history as a study partner, Lily." Amy was in awe. That was her dark prince, his wondrous eyes never miss any detail. She was more in love with him now. As Lily played with her hair as she thought about it, she then went over to Andrew. Davian looked up at Amy. Amy felt like her heart was going to burst. He said, calmly, "Sure. We can study together." Amy replied, "Here's my phone number. Text me when it's a good time for us to have a study session for you." Amy walked over back to her desk. She was playing cool, calm, and collected on the outside, but on the inside, she was in fangirl mode on max. She talked to the Dark Prince. She was so happy. Davian looked at the note and placed it in his home folder. He thought it would be a good idea to try and make some living friends too. Then the lunch bell rang. Davian went to the ballroom like always and hung out with Bella and Knight until the next bell rang. Unknown that Amy was watching his every move the moment he began in this school. She took several pictures from her iPhone. As the last bell rang for everyone to go home, Amy went back to her princess room and added the pictures of Davian to her love wall. Then Davian shivered for some reason as he studied for his test this week. For tomorrow was a new day. Chapter 8, Love is Terrifying. The next day, in school, Davian walked over to Amy and tapped her shoulder. Amy looked at him with surprised eyes. He asked, coldly, would tonight be a good day to study for the midterm for history? Amy was so excited that her dark prince was asking her. She had to reply quickly before Davian changed his mind. Amy replied, sweetly, sure. Let me ask my dad quick. Amy texted her dad, and he said sure. Before Amy could tell Davian, he disappeared. She looked around her to find him. He was heading to his first class. She remembered that he had a test today in that class. She would have to wait until her third class to talk to him. Davian walked into his classroom. The teacher was there early today because the test would begin as soon as all the students arrived at class. After the test, Davian was mentally tired. Once it was the third bell. Amy looked to see if Davian was already in class. He was, but he was resting on his desk. Amy walked over to him as she sat next to him. She watched him for a few minutes before she woke him up. He was beautiful as he slept. This is not the end of the story. Part 2 will come soon. I plan to make this a book someday. Happy Halloween. And thank you for reading The Ballerina.